All right, we are live for the Friday edition of the morning check-in. And as always, looking forward to connecting. Hope everyone is doing well this morning. And yeah, what an interesting week, to say the least. And never a dull moment. But I want to cap off this week with something that really caught my attention. It has to do with the Federal Reserve and their lack of transparency, even though they love touting that they're a part of the government. Yet then again, they're a separate entity. So what is it going to be? We'll find out. But based upon the Federal Reserve recent denial of some very key information to our government, lets me know that there's a lot of things that they don't want to make the headlines, and it has everything to do with gold. And so now that gold is back in the limelight, gold has been placed back as a monetary preferred medium, and the Federal Reserve can't afford to allow the cat out the bag as far as the information in reference to who, and what they're holding to be made public. So we're going to talk about that, as well as a couple other things that has my attention in reference to how states are interacting with this current financial restructuring that's underway. So we're going to dive into that and a couple of things. And as always, want to find out what you guys are keeping your eye on. So let me know where you guys are watching from, what's on your radar this morning, what are you guys keeping an eye on, whether, interesting or not, bring it to the forefront so we can all stay plugged in. And if you have not, as you guys come in, hit that thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. And if you don't mind, hit that share button, because as always, we try to drop some truth here that counters the mainstream lies. And we're going to do that today as well. So welcome to the live stream, my good people. Let me just check in, acknowledge a couple people. Let me know how the audio sounds. Let me know if everything coming in smoothly on your end, and then we'll do the best we can. Looks like I got a gray hair right here. This irritate me. I gotta keep my grays tight. What else we got here? We got Miguel checking in. Says by a judge, a police chief, and a few politicians. Yeah, that always seems to work, I think. We got Niels checking in as well. We got Oro Lobo checking in as well. How you doing, my friend? James checking in. Carlos checking in as well. It says greetings, RTD. What does we got here? We got let me change this up real quick so I can see it a little better. Give me 1 second here. So it shows a little better here. Yeah, let me see if that works. Give me 1 second here. Always tweaking on the fly. Let me see here. It says, let me see. Yeah. So it says RTD. It says, and gold and silver, BTC and ETH members. Got a little bit of everything I see. All right. Grand Rising. Hazy Bougie Prep. How are you doing? All right. Watching from my custom car shop in Minnesota. All right, man. Appreciate you, dog. All right. So yeah, let's get into it, man. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm trying to stay on top of the different narratives. And so within this country here, we have a lot of activity within the states. So we have states passing bills saying that, we're not going to be allowing CBDCs. At the same time, we have some other states also promoting and encouraging and incentivizing activity when it comes to Bitcoin, like literally focusing more on allowing Bitcoin rights than just sticking to what is on the books as far as legal tender laws in reference to gold and silver, and the states having the right supposedly to be the ones that issue gold and silver, which we've gotten away from over the last century plus. But so I'm trying to get a feel for the narratives that's out here, and it all has to do, internationally speaking, gold is on the forefront of a lot of head stories outside this country, but within our country they seem to be throwing all types of different narratives at us. And all the politicians, only a small few, 2, 3, 4, 5, a handful at the minimum, actually concentrate on true constitutional sound money. And so I find that to be very interesting. So I've got a couple headlines of things I want to bring to your attention. So we're going to dive into that and a couple other stories. And as always, as I mentioned, feel free to throw out what you guys are keeping your eyes on. So let's not waste any time, good people. Let's get into it, man. All righty. So as always, let me try to do some things on the back end here. And I just want to share my perspective, get some thoughts, and have you guys bounce some ideas off you guys, and feel free to bounce them back so we can try to make sense of all this in real time. But before I do that, I got to make sure I just remind people who might be new to the community. You never know. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to stay plugged in and get some opportunity to get some information. So as you see on the screen here, we got the Dollar IQ quiz here. It's 10 simple questions, make a world of difference as far as helping people fill in the gap of what we haven't or have not been taught in school when it comes to sound money and the difference between fiat currency and that. So if you're interested, average right now is about 60% And so it's 10 simple questions from a historical standpoint. This still happens to catch people off guard. So rethinkingthedollar.com/quiz. Go take it and share some feedback. And if you find it of value, pass it forward to some family and friends and see where they stand and create like a little challenge amongst yourselves. So good opportunity to test your knowledge bank, see where that gap lies, and try to fill it in with more information, more knowledge. So definitely have a look at that if you guys want to. And then on another note here, as I always mention, want to definitely give people an opportunity to participate in taking back what is rightfully theirs. And so if you are interested, colonialsmetalsgroup.com/RTD is a company I've partnered with to help people take back what is theirs and put it in their possession with a self-directed IRA. And so I had a chance to speak with the CEO and got a lot of interesting information on how this program works. So if you're interested, it's real simple. You can call and speak with the experts. In the description down below, you can fill out a little quick survey. You'll get a call from one of their representatives and just ask questions. Find out if it's for you or not, and you can get all the information you need. And so if you want to, this page here, link in the description, has all the information you need to get plugged in and give them a call. Speak with somebody directly. Number is 888-521-2448. And just get your questions answered on how to take back what's rightfully yours, which is gold and silver in your possession, on top of a couple other things you can put in there as well. So good option for people who want to take advantage of it. So, all right, that's what we got there. Now let's get into the leading story, man. The leading story of the day. Actually, because I noticed yesterday I didn't have a chance to dive into the metals. So real quickly, I'll just glance at it. Not that it really matters because we already know what's happening globally. But real quick here, we got gold at $2,299. Look at that number, man. It's only going to climb. And so based upon the stories I'm going to share with you, we can see where all this upward momentum is coming from when we got nations literally really focusing on how much gold they can accumulate and how they're going to implement it into their financial structure. So just interesting to see here. So we got up this morning and the markets opened up at 2302. So it's good to say, based upon where things are heading with all the geopolitical conflict, the war rumors, potential of events happening within our country here, by November election time, we can easily be, I would just throw out there, say 2,500 worst case scenario. I mean, I'm curious to see what you guys think. If this momentum continues, where could the gold price actually end up by the end of the year? Burn any unforeseen events or, curveballs out the blue, or it could be a complete market disruption where gold and silver tanks like they typically do. But then again, the rally could be something fierce. So as of right now, look at this. We're approaching that $30 mark, which a lot of people say is that the breaking point, where from there it's just off to the races. And so as of now, market's opened up. Market's opened up and starts trending higher. So so it's something's happening on the silver side. And I see a lot of people share with me the David Hunter interview where he talks about, silver breaking out, I think by the end of this year being closer to 60 or heading into next year about $60 an ounce. So yeah, right now, silver might be the cheapest you might ever see it again, possibly. So just something to keep in mind there. But to the primary story, let's get into it. So here's something that caught my attention. Federal Reserve refuses to provide records of foreign gold holdings. And then I'm thinking like, okay, why would they do that? Other than the fact that the Federal Reserve has no interest whatsoever in talking about something that they're trying to erase from the record books and history books altogether. And so outside of what they're intentionally working on now, which happens to be their 5 different central bank digital currency, test trials that they're wanting to have ready for whenever, comes about in the future. But they don't want to go backwards and talk about gold. But we had a couple of congressmen that actually submitted according to the Freedom of Information Act, which is what, apparently after a certain period of time, they're obligated to then provide information requested by our government. But then they said no. And they tried to downplay it and shift the blame and, say, go check out this bank. So let's just check this out real quick. It says, weeks after Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell evaded a sitting congressman question about the central bank's foreign gold holdings, the Fed has also declined to comply with a Freedom of Information Act request for records about such holdings. So they've literally just told the U.S. government, you can shove it. we ain't doing nothing. We're not telling you nothing. Okay. I guess that is a true sign of independence. they're not really a part of the government if they can tell. Well, anyways, Federal Reserve lack of transparency comes amidst reports that countries are removing their gold and other assets from the U.S. in a wake of unprecedented Western sanctions imposed on Russia over the invasion of Ukraine. It says, according to a 2023 survey, a substantial percentage of central banks expressed concern about how the U.S. and its allies froze nearly half of Russia's $650 billion in foreign reserve. So Alex Mooney, who's been one of the most outspoken representatives from West Virginia, he's been the one putting forth all these bills that really haven't gotten any traction. But then again, he's putting forth effort. Then all it does, he can't disrupt anything, just like, Ron Paul couldn't disrupt anything when it comes to trying to bring gold back to the forefront. But acts like this lets us know how crucial gold is in the monetary system and how the Federal Reserve cannot afford to let the cat out the bag as far as them opening up the vaults to reveal what's there or what's not there, whether it's foreign held or supposedly the 8,330 something tons that we supposed to have as, the American, as in our reserves as Americans in Fort Knox and as well as all the other vaults. And so we all know that gold has been rehypothecated and leased out and sold to God knows who, but it ain't there. And that's why this is crucial information. It says here, Representative Mooney asked Powell about the matter in a December letter, only to have the Fed chair respond last month. So the letter was submitted in December. He responded in March, 90 days later, telling him that the Federal Reserve does not own gold, but it holds it as a custodian for other entities, a fact that the Congress presumably already knew. And so here he said, Federal Reserve does not own gold. Mind you, on the Fed's balance sheet, they have certificates, gold certificates, because going back to the Federal Reserve Act and the confiscation of gold in 1933, the government worked it out to where the government received the gold and the Federal Reserve received the gold certificates to put on their balance sheet. So technically speaking, the claim to the gold are the receipts which reside on the Federal Reserve balance sheet, and the number is equivalent to the $20 per, or I think it's a $20 or $35 per ounce that it was, I think the statutory amount that is sitting on the gold on the Fed's balance sheet. So they don't have the gold, but they have the rights to it because they got the receipts. So that's that, in Jim Ricker's book, where I got it at. In Jim Ricker's book, let me see, where's it at? Anyway, one of Jim Ricker's books about, gold, he talks about that anomaly where we're not supposed to know this, but the Fed has the certificates and the U.S. is supposed to have the gold. Now, how did all that stand today? Only God knows, but it's good to say they're downplaying this on intent and on purpose. But real quick, couple more things here. It says, following Powell's evasive response, Headline USA filed a FOIA to request from the Fed for records reflecting how much gold the Federal Reserve Bank of New York currently holds in its vaults, as well as records reflecting the ownership stake that each of the Federal Reserve Banks of New York's central bank government clients have in the vault. So literally, the Headline USA news resource wanted to know exactly which governments, which countries have gold in the vaults and how much. And it says the FOIA request also sought records about the Fed's gold holdings prior to Russia's February 2022 invasion of Europe. It says, however, the Federal Reserve denied the Freedom of Information request on this past Wednesday. And then they gave the reason why. Board staff consulted with the staff at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and have been advised that such records, if they exist, would be Reserve Bank records and consequently not subject to the board's rules regarding availability of information. So literally, if we have this information, which clearly they do, they're saying that it's not accessible to you guys and it doesn't comply or fall up under the Freedom of Information Act, meaning that you will never find out. And so that led me to believe, that led me to question, okay, so the Fed literally is downplaying this. They're telling the U.S. government, we're not telling you nothing. And no matter what, this is not freedom of information because we're not giving it to you. So it's good to say to me that the gold that was supposed to be in the vaults have been slowly but surely, because we've talked about this in previous years, how all the countries have been basically repatriating their gold incrementally. And so could the vaults actually be empty at this time? Or are the Federal Reserve as a entity, because they're, basically they're the bank of all bankers in a sense, are they holding on to the gold for their own special interests, or have the shareholders, which are the globally systemic important banks, have they somehow, some way staked claim to certain percentages of the gold, which makes up the real capital, real reserves of the actual Federal Reserve Bank, because everything on top of the gold is literally digits on a screen and paper IOUs that they have a contractual obligation with our government to print. So it's like, why the gold secrecy? What's going on behind the scenes? We'll probably never find out, because they don't want gold to become a part of the monetary structure ever again. But then that doesn't mean that the rest of the world won't respond in a way that they have already planned on doing so, by more gold news. And what I mean by that, we know that Russia has had issues with having their assets frozen, but that hasn't stopped them from continuing to move forward. And this leads into more of what I'm getting to. So here we have the BRICS. It says Russia doubles gold and foreign currencies to uproot US dollar. And so Watchers.guru always does a good job of kind of spinning the narrative a little bit, in a sense of drawing out some drama. But then again, this is from the recent announcement that within the next 30 days, Russia is looking to double their gold holdings and other foreign currencies, i.e. from the friendly nations, in reference to having some reserves on their in their balance sheet. But it says here, BRICS is the largest buyer of gold in 2023 as members accumulated tons of the precious metal. Reported, the World Gold Council says China alone purchased 225 tons, while Russia, India, Brazil, and South Africa came next in line. It says reports suggest that the BRICS could back their soon-to-be released currency with gold to take on the U.S. dollar. So we all know all eyes will be, as we move forward this year, before the presidential elections this year. The BRICS summit will be in October within Russia, of which they're working on, is going to say here, a SWIFT alternative, a BRICS interbank payment system, and then 3, some type of communicator device that will link all the current countries together. And then you factor in, with the addition of 5 new nations that are all heavily, naturally oil-rich countries, there could be some type of announcement in the next couple of months. Who knows? But clearly they're working on something with all the accumulation of this gold, while here in the U.S., the Federal Reserve is denying any access to information related to gold. So they don't want no talks of gold in this country here, but they will let you talk about Bitcoin and CBDC talk. Anyway, it says, in addition, Russia announced on Thursday that it is doubling its accumulation of gold and local currencies moving forward. The country's finance minister confirmed that they will double the acquisition of both gold and foreign currencies. The gold and foreign currency accumulation will start April 5th, which is today, to May 7th. So literally for the next 30 days, whatever gold is out there will be sucked into the vaults in Russia, and they're going to have it as actual reserves on deck, a savings account for their country to do international trade and settlement and things of that nature, but also as a hedge and a reassurance policy against all the activity happening in the world. So while other nations, and particularly the BRICS, are racing to secure gold, our government, our Federal Reserve here, rather, our central bank don't want nothing to do with gold, because we don't necessarily have to talk about gold, because we have the current dollar. And the Federal Reserve System is the gatekeeper and the entry point of all entrances and exits in the monetary system for now. And so that plays into why they don't need to talk about gold. And so anyway, it says the development comes at a time when the BRICS is looking to stop using the U.S. dollar for cross-border transactions. To know more about this section, you can read here. Okay, so the rest of the world is racing to gold. Gold is popping up on a lot of headlines, and not here in the U.S. And so here's another interesting story to do with gold. And I find this to be comical, because even though it's an attempt by the Zimbabwean government to try to create some type of financial, monetary stability in their country, the criminality runs so deep in that country that it will fail, but I can see the attempt. And so we all talked about how they came out with the different gold coins in 2022, and we haven't heard much about it. Don't know if the program is still running, but it looks like they're trying to bring gold back in another form with a gold-backed currency to replace the collapsing dollar. And so here it says, Zimbabwe to launch gold-backed currency to replace collapsing dollar. It says many in South African country prefer to keep their money at home. So the country has already been dollarized. Everybody in real time use dollars. And so they have a term called, what's it called here? What they, let me see here. The term that they call, it says some Zimbabweans prefer to keep their money at home that the practice has gained an affectionate nickname called mattress banking. And they're referring to basically keeping dollars in their bank, in their possession. But real quick here, it says Zimbabwe today, this is another activity happening today. So we got Russia looking to start doubling their gold holders today. And Zimbabwe is looking to launch a new currency that it said would be backed by the country's gold reserves. The latest move by the President Mugabe government to tackle decades of monetary chaos. Mugabe said after a tour of the central bank vaults that the Southern African nation had sufficient gold to support the new structured currency, although analysts question the adequacy of the assets. So literally, as of right now, the Zimbabwe dollar trades at $36,000, 36,000 Zimbabwe dollars to $1 US on the black market. And the official exchange rate is 26,000. So we always see how currencies on the official market is favorable to the government, but then again, on the black market or in the streets, it's always, at least double that, damn near. So anyway, so here's just a little visual aid here showing how the Zimbabwe dollar, since looks like end of last year or the middle of last year, just literally fell off a cliff. It went from being pegged 1-to-1 with the dollar to like 10-to-1. Then all of a sudden, just boop, 5,000 to 1, then 10,000, 50,000, 20,000. So imagine if you was earning Zimbabwe dollars. So this is the fifth iteration of their restructured currency over the last 10 to 15 years, I think, and it's failing. So the idea of this gold back really working and picking up steam is not too likely, but I commend them for bringing the narrative of gold back into the equation because they're naturally rich in gold. So anyway, so what else is happening in reference to the gold nation? This is some interesting developments here. And so shout out to JP Cortez, who I've had on the show before, highlighted. He's one of the primary guys on the ground trying to get more states to actually just reinstate or implement what's already on the books there. Each state constitution has gold and silver back in the archives, but it's just been downplayed because under the federal government, everybody has been used to doing everything in the Federal Reserve note. And so it says Utah formally empower state treasurer to protect funds with gold and silver. So real quick here, it says Utah governor signed legislation explicitly empowering state's treasurer to protect state's funds with an allocation to gold and silver, sponsored by Representative Ivory. House Bill 348 permits, but it does not require the treasurer to hold up to 10% of certain state reserve accounts in physical gold and silver to help secure state assets against the risk of inflation and financial turmoil, or to achieve capital gains as measured in Federal Reserve notes. So the good state of Utah is literally putting on the books the opportunity for the state to hold gold as a hedge ultimately against the Federal Reserve note. So it says here to achieve capital gains as measured in the Federal Reserve note. So literally having real, true sound money on your books, in your vault for state wealth preservation is the primary tool. But then again, if you need to interact with your federal government as they destroy the Federal Reserve note, aka the dollar, the gold priced in USD will only appreciate, allowing you to then probably take that to interact with the federal government when it comes to, any types of taxes or whatever. So literally, it's the ideal, perfect insurance policy to take out. And the state is giving their state treasurer the opportunity to do that. So this very act here is what every single citizen in this country should be incentivized to do. Take gold and silver, which is real sound money, put it into your personal possession, i.e. your vault. And over time, the valuation of that price in USD terms, aka Federal Reserve notes, will continue to increase as the government just implodes on itself. As our federal government does all this stupid stuff, everything happening in a foreign territory, Russia, China, they're driving the price up by accumulating massive amounts of it. And then Shanghai is literally decoupling the USD paper from the USD physical. And so I think it's $100, $200 difference over there, I think. And same thing with silver. So literally, all you have to do is just acquire real gold and just silver and just sit on it. Do nothing. Don't even worry about it. Live your life. And the chaos that's happening within the monetary structure in of itself will allow that particular asset to increase in USD terms at least. And so I notice a lot of people say, we're still pricing everything in USD terms. And so as of right now, because the US dollar is still the head honcho of the monetary structure, everything is still priced in USD. So until that changes, it's good to look at it in two ways. A, first and foremost, as the Federal Reserve note depreciates, everything that's priced in USD will ultimately go up, and that's a good and bad thing. And so, like your stock portfolio might look like it's increasing nominally speaking, but in relative terms, you're not getting this purchasing power. But then again, all your house, your cost of living to go up, your food to go, everything will go up around you. So you need something to counter that and to far exceed that level of growth. And that comes into holding other assets that are underpriced right now. That's gold and that's silver. And of course, the speculative nature of the cryptocurrency, which also will more than likely beat inflation by magnitudes, especially crypto, because that's where they want everything to flow. So I was actually, talking to some family members yesterday about, the importance of literally taking advantage of all these opportunities that we're being afforded, because as stuff begins to break, then that's when the pandemonium and the panic will set in, and then things are going to just take off because the rest of the populace, 99.99% of people who don't know what's going on, they're going to start scrambling. You want to definitely beat the herd in whatever you're allocating to, as long as you believe in and you know that it has some type of value, short term and long term. So just a little something there. But so my point is, for those who are just getting in here, I've painted a case as to how here in the U.S., the Federal Reserve will not talk about gold. They're denying our Congress any type of information on how much gold they hold, while we have the BRICS nations, ideally Russia, looking to double their gold holdings. And then Zimbabwe is talking about launching a gold-backed currency to help their people out, which may or may not work. But then again, we have some states, Utah, amongst others, that are literally putting their money where their mouth is and saying, hey, we want our state treasurers to hold gold, which is what we should be doing all along. So that's what's happening. Okay, so what does this mean? I wanted to also talk about some other interesting stories. So right now, this is from Secretary Janet Yellen. This came out today at 8:58. And so she's over in China, literally trying to smooth things over and buy more time for the U.S., I believe. So this is what she posted, or her staff member. Today in Guangzhou, I met with Zhengdao Governor Wang. We discussed Guangzhou's, I'm sure I'm butchering this, but our rich history as China's window to the world economy and a center of economic reform, and discussed our goal of healthy economic relationship that benefits both sides. And so when I read this, I'm thinking like, okay, I even mentioned about this earlier, how there's no doubt in my mind the U.S. was feeling some type of pressure to go over to China to really talk about what really does matter. And I would assume it has something to do with the current monetary order and the U.S. needing more time to accomplish whatever it is that they're trying to roll out. And so they're there not to necessarily talk about how to be more mutual partners, but literally Janet Yellen's over there kissing some behind a little bit to try to smooth things over. And I think it has a lot to do with the gold price. The fact that the Shanghai Gold Exchange is literally right now causing a lot of problems in reference to the U.S. being able to continue to weaponize the dollar, especially when it comes to debt issuance, because we're in the need of rolling out, a couple $1 trillion worth of debt. And if China's not being one of the primary buyers of this debt because they're de-dollarizing, then they're going to be stuck, and they're going to be forced to have the Fed is going to be forced to have to directly monetize things, which will further, slow down plans of trying to keep some type of stability while we get through this reset that they're all working together on. And so when I saw this, it's like, it says we discuss our goal of a healthy economic relationship. I'm like, ain't nothing healthy about what we experience in the world right now. Everybody's dealing with inflation or currency debasement, and the one primary differences in our economies and our business models from what's happening in China and what's happening in the U.S. is China, they export real goods and services that, cheap little knickknacks around the world, and the U.S. exports debt. So we import real goods and we export debt. And now that is no longer the primary driver of the global economy, consumption in that regard, there's an imbalance there. So China is no longer importing or exporting, rather, goods and services just to us in dollars. They're willing to accept a little bit of everything. And on the U.S. side, we need people to take our debt. If they don't take our debt, then we can't finance our deficits and fund our government, sending funds to to Ukraine and to Israel and all these other nations that, get aid from us at taxpayer expense. So, this is what I believe is going on. So anyway, I thought this was interesting because, once again, gold, I'm sure, is a part of this discussion as well. All right, what else we got here? All right, so within our borders here, some of the narratives that states are focusing on outside of the few states talking about gold, CBDC talk is still on the table. And so I thought this was interesting here because this plays hand in hand with just a digital transformation that's taking place within our states here individually. And so between CBDC talk, this on the hush that more alternative media people speak about, such as myself, because I know it's inevitable. It will come. There's no stopping it. It's just more so when. And then what the mainstream media is focusing on, which is Bitcoin. So here we have 11 states have pending anti-CBDC legislation. South Dakota votes in favor. So here's just a list of all the states as of right now that have expressed some type of pushback or have publicly acknowledged, this idea of CBDC being a threat to citizen sovereignty, privacy, and everything else. Okay, so here we got the current status. Block state accepting CBDC. CBDC is not money. CBDC back, CBDC trial, whatever, another. So here are different categories that everything falls into. So as of right now, Alabama, block state accepting CBDC. So it looks like they may be legislation passed. And then we have Florida. They've already made it that CBDC is not money. DeSantis has already said that they're an anti-CBDC state. Indiana also said the same thing. And then we got Alabama, block state CBDC and trial on participation. So not quite sure if they're it looks like Alabama might be in favor. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 states here. And so this is the activity we have amongst the states right here. So I know Michigan won't be on this list. California won't be on this list, and New York won't be on this list because, unfortunately, our governor leadership is literally pro-woke, pro-World Economic Forum type policy. So they're going to definitely be the first ones to probably accept the CBDC. But it's good to see some states here. And a lot of these states, I know South Dakota, I think, Oklahoma, Utah, and I think those states are the pro-gold and silver states, if I'm not mistaken, with a couple more in there. So those states are favoring gold and silver in circulation for the state funds, as well as giving the citizens a chance to interact with gold and silver. Whereas in these other states here are on the fence as to whether or not CBDCs will or will not be elected. But so as of right now, 11 states are pending. So we'll find out more about that. I'll keep you on top of that. But outside of that, here's what seems to be getting more momentum. More states are focusing on Bitcoin bill rights. Like, instead of just reinforcing what is already sound money, i.e. gold and silver, I would say if our politicians really cared about the best interest of their citizenry within the state, knowing that, it's up to the states really to accept anything that comes from the federal level, like, why not just make it known the importance of gold and silver first and foremost, and then anything else such as this new technology, i.e. Bitcoin or whatever else states want to talk about, then you give people an option for that. But to outright ahead of time preemptively talk about creating Bitcoin Bill of Rights that allow citizens to be able to hold in custody their Bitcoin with no problem. So if Bitcoin is property, which falls under the same category as gold and silver, then of course they should be able to. So why is this even a question? But anyway, so it says Oklahoma emerges as the 12th state to pass a Bitcoin rights bill in the U.S. And so here's let me see here, more states here. It says Louisiana, Ohio, and other states joined the spree. Earlier this month, Louisiana joined a spree as 11th state, whatever. And so the legislation ensured the freedom to buy, sell, and trade Bitcoin while also supporting crucial processes like mining and validation. It says, additionally, it emphasizes the significance of self-custody and empowering individuals to control their digital assets. So I just think it would be great if more states use the same type of fervor and excitement when it comes to the digital side to just remind people of what's already on the books when it comes to the tangible real world elements from the periodic table, i.e. gold and silver, and make that more of a cause worth fighting for because it's physical and tangible and real in real time. And then add on, if you want, the digital stuff, which we're already been steered towards anyway. So, I just wanted to bring all these subjects here to the forefront because there's different narratives depending on what angle you're taking to look at what's happening with this, monetary restructuring. And so other nations outside our country is focusing on gold. That's a part of their plan or whatever capacity. And of course, the gold will not actually be used for the individual, because all those countries also are focusing on the CBDC. So every nation on the planet is focusing on a CBDC. So it's not a matter of if, it's when. But at the higher level, amongst the countries, that's where gold will come into play, i.e., whatever gold-backed interaction, trade, international settlement is brought forth in the future to combat and to challenge the current SWIFT, aka dollar hegemony that the world has been up against for the last 100 years almost. So I just find it interesting that, in an international state, gold is extremely important. But then again, within our own country here, if you turn on CNN or MSNBC or Fox, I see all these Bitcoin maxis, getting, top of the line airtime, talking about the Bitcoin ETF, with very little talk about the CBDC, other than just like the fact that states are talking about banning it in their state. But once again, like, never addressing the root cause of anything. Everybody talks about the symptoms. And so you got, fix the money, fix the world, talking about the symptom is the money. But then again, the cause of a fraudulent, failing monetary financial structure is the fact that central banks in and of themselves, the fact that they exist as a primary orchestrators of criminality with fractional reserve banking and all the off-book balance sheet stuff that we know nothing about, that's the cause of mankind's problem, in cahoots with our government. So mankind has a government crisis because all governments are corrupt at its core, because they're all bought and paid for by special interest groups and everything in between. And as a result of that, they've abdicated the right to a centrally controlled entity, i.e. a business model called central banking, to then weaponize all currencies against the people. And they seal the deal by taxing the people to put out as much currency as they want into existence, but always been able to bring in just a little bit through taxation, because serfdom, i.e. debt slavery, via currencies is the primary means of keeping everybody in check. So until that stuff is addressed, all this other stuff is just like, good talking points. And that's the part that bothers me, is that people, like, especially in the Bitcoin community, it just really irks me now, because I follow all this stuff and they be like, just fix the money. Like, we're taking back the rights of our money. And I'm thinking, like, but long as you're a citizen of any country, you're still a debt slave through taxation. So all you got to do is just adjust the amount of taxes you pay on anything, and they still have you in the trap. So, like, are you really getting free, or, are you really disrupting anything when, you're basically holding that asset, i.e. Bitcoin, which has been used as a hyperinflationary absorber. But then on the other end of that, they're going to tax the snot out of you. So it's like, okay. But anyway, if I say stuff like that, people like don't want to have conversations like that. But that's real talk. Like, they all want to talk about the pros, but what's the cons to all this monetary manipulation? So anyway, that's just my thoughts. Okay. What else we got here? So let's get into a little Q&A, man. Curious to hear what you guys are talking about, what you're thinking about. Let me know in the chat. I'm not sure. I see some spiritual talk out there. Who thinks they can tell people only they speak for God? Okay. I'm gonna stay out of that conversation. I don't know nothing about that one. And for my people who are maybe just checking in with us, I encourage you to watch the replay of this. You'll get all the gist of what I'm trying to show. So ultimately, to sum it all up, the Federal Reserve can't talk about gold because they got to move forward with the weaponization of the currency and keeping the rest of the world in check while working on a CBDC for after whatever market correction happens next, the Great Depression, recession. They're going to roll out a CBDC. But other nations, to counter whatever's coming next, they're getting gold to reestablish trust in the monetary system for whatever alternatives are being presented for the future. But then again, they too are still working on CBDCs to implement to their slave serfdoms, i.e. taxpayers. So no matter what, we're going to have a CBDC world 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. Gold will be used amongst banks and governments, but not down at the retail level. And between now and then, they're going to find ways to cut off exits for gold and silver via bullion depository dealers. And Bitcoin by 2030, I believe, will definitely be exposed, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is just a math problem waiting to be solved. And I got 2 or 3 reasons how they're going to solve it, but I don't want to disappoint anybody. And so That's just my thesis on things, but it's not necessarily doom and gloom. It's just reality. Like it's just, there, of course, amongst all that, there's still opportunity. So it's more so how you process it, how you perceive things in real time. So that's just me. Anyway, Neil says Hamas builds war bunkers under preschools. Oh, okay. Ed says U.S. killed 2 million Vietnamese and 1 million Iraqis, mostly civilians for what? Man, Ed, I don't know what that's referring to, but just those numbers, mind you, the human population are just viewed at in times like this when the most important things is profit and greed amongst governments and the military, pharmaceutical, industrial, all these complexes. Any amount of lives that are lost are just casualties amongst the greater scheme of things, which is control and just greed and control. Two of the primary staple points of living in a fallen world. That's saturated in sin. That's just how things flow. There's no justification for it other than just realizing that we're under the powers of darkness at this current moment, and these are the things that will happen. And yeah. The dad says, great summary. Appreciate you, man. Trying to sum things up, make it simple and sweet for everybody. What else, right? Any thoughts out there? What else is going on out there? I see a lot of back and forth amongst the community. So for those who are plugged in, I encourage people, as I always do, to take the conversation over to Telegram. So social media tabs, links in below. But go to Telegram, join that if you got a Telegram account, and then keep the conversation going there. Back and forth, share articles, thoughts, ideas. And that's another way of people to connect off air when we're not here. Telegram is best place. So there's a lot of activity throughout the day there. So check it out if you want. What else we got here? Here's something here. So what we got here? It says, Mike, do you think the U.S. government to nationalize Bitcoin, so one Satoshi backed by 1 penny US BTC goes to 1 million, done deal, wealth transfer? Between now and the official rollout of CBDCs, I would say anything is possible. And speaking of which, since you brought that up, let me share something else which I didn't mention. Here is something that's worth paying attention to. There's a mysterious buyer out there called Mr. 100, and that entity is gobbling up a large amount of Bitcoin. So here's a post from Simple Bitcoin. It says, just in, Mr. 100 gobbled up 2,170 BTC in the last 4 days of April. The Bitcoin supply crunch is going to melt faces. Hold on. So the way this is being, so it's my opinion and suspicion that Bitcoin is literally the primary conduit that covers up the greatest wealth transformation ever. And over the last 15 years of Bitcoin being introduced, it has distracted the entire retail investor space. Every single billionaire, every millionaire is focused on this as a way of capturing some of this wealth transfer in real time. But if like I always say, if Bitcoin did never turn up on the scene, gold would already be 5, 6, 7,000 right now. Silver would already be $150, $200 right now, and it'll be very hard to pull off the rollout of a CBDC. So they need Bitcoin to succeed until the math problem, as I just mentioned, because Bitcoin is just a math problem waiting to be solved. This wasn't introduced without them already knowing how to solve the problem. And so as of right now, Bitcoin is a hyperinflationary release valve. So the Federal Reserve will be able to crank up a couple more trillion. It's going to make its way into this. The world will feel the fake illusionary wealth effect. Everybody bags will be pumped. Then they'll, eventually slowly but surely start spending it. It can keep the dollar afloat for quite some time, is what I'm getting at. But I was thinking like, okay, this Mr. 100, the amount of funds that they have to continue to pour into Bitcoin can be limitless. And I'm thinking like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is somehow linked to the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which is the government's, emergency fund set up during the Great Depression to always be able to prop up markets if need be. And we don't know how much is in there. It's a hush-hush topic. So literally the Fed and the government could be in cahoots, funneling money, currency through some entity directly pumping up this price, causing this type of attention here, which only insinuates more people to get in, to beat the banks, get in before them. So more people, retail investors, get sucked into this, making them think that, oh man, and then you got all the talking heads, sailors and Kathy Woods, Bitcoin's gonna be $1.5 million by next year or 2 years from now. It's mathematical certainty. Okay, it can be, because what is it priced in? USD. And if you got an unlimited amount of currency that we know nothing about being pumped into the markets, then Bitcoin can definitely reach whatever price it wants to. But it's a matter of like, okay, it's not because they want to make us rich, but it's because literally they need a distraction, a cover, while they work out the underlying assets restructuring, which is, if you haven't been paying attention, check out DTCC tokenization platform. They're literally using all this smart tech to build out the new financial structure, i.e. tokenization of stocks, bonds, government, housing, whatever. And the DTCC I've been researching is they do 2-point-something quadrillion dollars, I want to say annually, off book, off hush, quiet, under the table activity, because the DTCC owns everything that's publicly traded and everything that's issued as far as debt instruments. So they're ironing out the kinks for that first and foremost. So once that's done, once CBDCs are ready to be rolled out, and they will be 2-3 years from now, give or take, then Bitcoin as a safe haven asset to escape monetary, corruption, to save humanity, will be a systemic threat to the establishment. And then at that point, they're going to solve the math equation, whether it be through quantum computing, whether it be through some type of code virus that infiltrates the network and causes some backspin. Or think about there, I think there will be an unlimited ways of disrupting this sector. Or you could just make sure all the publicly visible miners that are now publicly traded companies are forced to shut off because they are a threat to national security, i.e. CBDCs. So it's not too hard for me to just play out scenarios of what could happen, and how BTC is the biggest Trojan horse in modern history. I could go on record and say that, and not necessarily be too far-fetched, because nobody really knows, because it's only 15 years old. It's never been tested during a great monetary reset. So that's just my opinion there. Long-winded answer, but to your point, the U.S. government could use BTC as a distraction tactic to help absorb some of the USD hyperinflationary pressure that will be utilized to prop things up. And they're doing this intentionally until it's time to reboot the system, where CBDCs will be what everybody will be forced to use, or else you won't be able to transact in the new world that they're creating. So, yeah. So that perspective, the way I spun it out, is something that, you can't talk about. Like, I could never get like Michael Saylor on the show and run through scenarios, or Kathy Woods. I could never get any of the mainstream talking heads on my show and throw out curveballs like that, because it's all tinfoil hat type level stuff. But then again, in a world where all this is uncertain, anything is possible. So at this current moment, I would imagine everybody can realize that whenever people talk about conspiracy theories, there are no such thing as conspiracies. That means somebody's working on something. And right now it's a theory that with the right amount of currency and funds behind it can be proven true. Just look at all the stuff we've witnessed over the last 4 years. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. What else we see? It says, More Monkey says, wait till they tell you these only 1 million Bitcoin available. Oh yeah. Could be interesting. It's obvious Bitcoin outperforming your silver bags really hurts. Grit gains. Okay, that's a great assessment there. So I'm no fool. And so I realized the trend. So, me being an optimist, I'm an opportunist, as I like to call myself. Overall, as an investor, as someone who literally looks for paradigm shifts that have already been taking place, I have been a participant in the digital transition for quite some time now, well before all the mainstream media became the primary focus. So, as I always mentioned before, having gold and silver is an insurance policy to put up and to hopefully never need to touch. So I don't need it to perform. All it has to do is just sit there. And as the government manipulates currency, it will be the recipient of all the monetary debasement that takes place. So as an insurance policy, who really wants to take a claim on their insurance policy? That means some damage already happened. So I don't want it to perform. Gold doesn't perform. It just sits there. Like, just like the treasure ships, they sink to the bottom of the ocean, and 100 years later, somebody finds them, and then you price that amount of gold that was on that ship, and it's in the tunes of billions. For historical sake, for the actual monetary value of the gold, and the archaeological find makes that gold priceless. Same thing when it comes to gold and silver. Just let it be itself. It's all the things built on top of it that I'm interested in as a opportunist. And so clearly you should have a position in things that is going to be deliberately pumped up. And so, me personally being an early adopter of this space, it's been very favorable on both ends. So it's no real losing when you're spread out amongst a variety of sectors and reaping the benefits of currency destruction. So all in all, I'm not too mad. I'm going to play the game too. You know what I'm saying? I'm no fool. Mama didn't raise no fools. You know what I'm saying? You play the game as well. Because it's all about weaponizing the currency. So if the currency is the enemy, where the currency going to flow? It's going to flow on the real things and the new digital things. So I'm not happy. I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all. Whoa. Ed, you for real? Let me check this out. At the end of the day, fiat currency is the enemy of the people. So if you're positioning things that you believe will benefit quite well, you should be good. Ooh. I see what you're saying, Ed. I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, this barbarous relic just sits there and it's a recipient. Like gold is just a recipient. It's like a sponge that just soaks up liquidity. Don't need to do nothing. You can put the sponge anywhere in a vault. You could put the sponge on the bottom of the ocean. You can put the sponge wherever you want to put the sponge, and it's just going to perform when you price it and what's failing. So just merely pricing gold in USD terms or any other fiat currency, gold is absorbing a lot of liquidity right now. So $2,300, an all-time high, meaning that the Federal Reserve note is an all-time low. Priceless. Anyone who came of age after 2008 financial crisis has never experienced anything other than the fake reality. 100%, Rod. Miguel says, I can hardly keep track of my auto insurance sign on the password. Bitcoin isn't for people like me. It says, Carlos says, what if they are cashing out 1 million BTC government to securitize by 1 milligram of gold? Done deal. Same players. What if after cashing out 1 million BTC government to securitize by 1 milligram of gold? Done deal. Same players. I'm not sure what that says. I read that, but I'm not sure how to process that. What else you got here? When you turn gold into jewelry, the price doubles. Right. Question: what if we all put out $20 a day for 1 week from the pull off from the bank? Australia doing this. Heard. Ace of Silver. Yeah, I talked about that. Was it on Wednesday? Having a little cash, as have cash is just like emergency stash. You know what I'm saying, for in the short term, because 99.99% of people still will run to fiat currency, even though it's the weapon of choice for the banks and government, because they don't know the difference. That's the reason why monetary illiteracy is the reason why this system has been prolonged the way it has been, because people don't know what money is. If you don't know what money is, then you just literally go with the flow of things. You do what you're told. You work hard, you save in a bank, and then you put up automatic deposits to your retirement vehicles, and you hope that in 30 years you can retire and live happily ever after, not realizing that they haven't noticed that the cost of maintaining a lifestyle during your retirement, regardless of whether you got a high living standard or low living standard, the going rate is like $1.4 million. And on average, there's less than 100,000 in savings accounts. So it's like, how does that math add up? So yeah, it's just real bad. Rolf said we could see 2,500 this month. That's very true. So when my statement earlier saying that 24, 25 by end of the year, that was an understatement given the activity right now. So where is all this price momentum coming from is what people should focus on. And it has everything to do with how I started this thing off. To me, clearly, like, gold shooting up is a direct response to the rest of the world's attack on the USD pricing the world's real world assets. Like, the true pressure is coming from exterior forces against the dollar, aka the Federal Reserve note. So literally, this is an attack on how the world prices real goods and services. And if you look at energy, I was looking at energy the other day, like a barrel of oil shot up. You know what I'm saying? It's like I think I saw the word. I think I saw $90. So once again, everything goes higher because the value and the purchasing power of the dollar is tanking. So it's going to put more pressure on our government here to have to respond some way or another. And the only way they can monetize the deficits and keep this debt train going is by creating more of the same currency. So, yeah. Miguel says, ever notice that BTC people need to pressure people to adopt their views? They need you to buy so it goes up. Gold folks don't care if you buy it or not. Neil, great point, man. That's where, like, I remember on Twitter, I was very active, just always questioning the narrative, question everything, believe nothing until you verify it for yourself. And all the Bitcoin maximalists, man, their followings are huge. I'm like, man, I wish, being a monetary enthusiast, I could get some type of following, just telling people, get your stack up first, then build on top with whatever digits you want to. But I'm noticing all the maximalists are quick to just try to use philosophical, like scientific, astronomical type vocabulary to make it sound so sophisticated and so intriguing. And it works. I be listening to some of these speeches and they be talking some math and stats and the energy of the universe is absorbed into one coin and there's can't be replaced by anything in the world. I'm like, dang, like that sounds great. But what does it mean? And so, like, it captivates people's attention, like itching ears. People want to hear stuff to make them feel good, make their body tingle. Like, oh man, I want to get in. And I'm like, what about if I did that with gold? Like, I couldn't even, like, I just say gold. And the closest thing people love to use, which is complete false, gold is just God's money. It's been here forever. I'm thinking, like, God need money? I'm like, no, like God created all things. Everything is created by God, and it was good. And it's here for mankind to use, not abuse. And it's a tool. So, like, you don't have to sell tools. It's just, if you need it, you go get it. So I don't have, what's the, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, anyway, I get your point. What else you got here? Anyway, I'm going longer than ever. I'm going longer than I typically go. To bless the upcoming U.S. bomb, what do you look for? Huh? Mike, I was in late. Did you do a devotion? Hey, Ed, I did not, because I didn't have time to prepare it. I did not do the devotion. Forgive me. I wanted to, but I didn't. So I just jumped right in. But anyway, we're close to our point, longer than I typically go. But if you're just jumping in, go to the beginning and work your way all the way through. You get the case I was trying to build up as to how the West loves to distract while the East is moving towards real tangible. It's showing the gold price. And all the puppets here will love us to focus on digits rather than physical. And so if you're going to play both, you'll be a beneficiary in USD terms. But then again, there's a cutoff point. And I think, 2030, probably be that cutoff point. And I had a whole thesis as to how and why that is. But it'll take too long to describe that. But anyway, I'm just Slush for today. Be blessed, be safe, people. Enjoy your weekend, and just, smile when you can. Love life and give God all the glory, because it all belongs to him. Shalom.